There we go. So, here's my hunk of steel that I'll be putting in here and replacing that. And what I'm gonna do to make my life a little easier is just do the work right here. Because I don't have a good bench set up to cut stuff. That's still in the works for me. So I'm gonna end up just doing this cut here, and we'll see how that all turns out. Okay, it's pretty good. Not the prettiest, but I think it'll need minimal adjustment. Looking pretty dang good. Well, I'm laying this down on my template, and it's not really lining up very well. That's a big gap. I knew I'd have to adjust it a bit, but I don't know, I don't like that. And over here, it does look pretty good. Now I'm off. You know, I knew that. That was intentional. I think I'm gonna stop because I'm a perfectionist. I'm gonna make a little 3D printed template now because it's kind of hard to cut these. There's the part, and I think I had just enough to finish the job. And now introducing a perfectly slip fit way to get this just right. Wow, look at that. I mean, it isn't far off, but definitely a little bit off. Now, because it has just this little bit of rock, gotta make something the edge that you trust, and since this has more material to it, I'll trust that side. So I just went out and bought some nice new Diablo bimetal blades, and I bought a variety of different ones. This is the one I know. I used this before to cut my car in half. Well, to cut my car in half, to cut some junk cars in half years and years ago. And I really liked them, and I couldn't find them anywhere. Turns out either just Home Depot sells them now, or maybe they always did. I usually go to Lowe's, but I found them there. They have a whole selection of them. Now this one is on the far end of what this should be cutting. It says it's for 1/16 to 5/16, and this is 4/16 or a quarter. So it's in the range. I bought a bigger size for thicker metal, but I know this one and I liked using it before, so I'm gonna start with this. And this came in a pretty reasonably priced pack. It was like, got 10 of them for, I'm gonna say $30, which for how this stuff goes, that's just how much it costs. Let's see how this one does. This will be a little bit more controlled than using the other thing. And one thing I have to be careful of is I'm going to try and not cut all the way down to the weld. From what I was reading, that'll just totally wreck these things. So I'm going to kind of cut on this side in, and then I will finish off with the grinder. In theory, that one's better. Yeah. Was this process messy? Was it overcomplicated? Did I need to go to the efforts that I went to get everything where it is? Probably not. But it's laid out exactly right. That should make my welding work a lot easier. I've got one glove. One glove. Where is my other glove? The other glove. I see it. When you want to weld metal like this, being so thick, it's good to add a chamfer. So what I'm going to do is take it down about halfway around the whole thing, put about a 1/8 inch chamfer on this, so that when I weld it I can fill that in, and that should penetrate all the way to the inside, and then I can go from there. Just keep filling it in. Plus I'm going to round the outside just a little bit, so that'll make that easier to do.
Okay, that's 4.
Ooh. This is working too good. Leave me alone. Make sure everything's nice and clean. When I weld, I'm going to clean this off too, because this is just the outside raw steel. Okay. Now we should be able to weld. Now I've got some extra pieces that I put together so I can practice, and since this should be flat, that's the goal, I'm going to weld it on the floor because I don't have a big flat surface that I can trust that's, you know, relatively flat. And this floor is pretty flat, so I'm going to use that as my reference. So to practice, I'm going to do it on the floor as well. I've got a Miller Multimatic 220, and that helps me because I don't do a lot of welding and I'm just getting back into it. That helps me just set the settings real quick and easy. Since this is a 1/4 inch, you'd think, oh, set it to a 1/4 inch, but I'm gonna try, because I ground it down to have the chamfer to about 1/8 the bottom. I'm going to start at 1/8 because I only have 0.03 inch wire. So I think that'll be the best way to go about it, but that's what's perfect about this test setup. I can practice a little bit before I do my real welds. So let's see how it goes. Okay, let's see if I remember how to do this. Good. Well, I think I can go higher on the heat, so I'm going to turn that up. All right, I'm going to just send it now. Visually it looks nice. Let's see. Don't touch it with your hands. It's making heat on the other side, but it's not quite that full penetration that I'd like to see. Not bad. I think I want it deeper, because I'd like to see it come out on the other side in there, which it's not. So I'll probably, because to me this looks pretty good, not perfect. Like this side, there's not too much of the boundary. There I don't like too much. I was really trying to set it in to see if it would just go down in. This side's looking pretty nice. You don't really want it to have a bubble and a hard edge, because that means it's just pooling on top. You want it to kind of flow into it. You know, visually this was really nice, but I'm just trying to get more penetration. So I think what I'll do before I grind the main one for how this is working, because the weld seems good, but I think it's just limited to, you know, the wire I'm working with. I'll make that chamfer a little bit deeper, almost bring it to the other side, and leave just a small edge for everything to mate up against, and that should penetrate the rest of the way. Now you can see where you start to not be so good. Because I'm welding on the side, gravity wants it to go down. So that I don't have to deal with that, I'll wait till I get it flat top and bottom before I weld those parts, and then I'll just flip them. The good news, I guess, is that at this spot I actually did get all the way through. I wouldn't call that good. Okay. So I only did 2 sides, but it looks like one solid piece of metal now. So everything went well about it, but I think I will chamfer it more. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to need to be able to do is weld the original frame to the tube. I went and sandblasted this a little bit because it's quite pitted, and my little spot blaster did well enough, but I tried doing it on this side without any prep work, and it was a lot harder. So I'll hit it with the grinder and then finish it off to try and get any impurities out of the pits. I'm just going to try welding it to the edge here. Because this has such a big chamfer, I'm going to basically try and get in at the edge of that chamfer as best I can and build it up from there. So we'll see what happens here. It's okay, it has some fusion. It goes around, but now I'll do a second pass, bring it all together. That I think I like. Went around the side pretty good. On the final one, I'll do, I think, another quick pass along here, maybe even up here if I was doing this for real. Okay, I think I'm ready. Assuming I haven't screwed anything up terribly, I've rechamfered everything, made it a little bit deeper. I have it sitting flat on the ground. It's butted up nicely to itself, and I made another template to double check the angle. And that fits nicely. So everything seems to line up as it should, and there's no wobble in the pipe pressing on side to side, so that would suggest that everything's nice and flat. So I think I'm ready to just weld, see what happens. Of course, you start with tacking, so I'll do that. And I think I'm gonna tack the corners and do both sides. Last sanity check. So I got 4 tacks, so that should be more or less in there. And Navance, as they say. And I gotta line up this side. In theory, this is now at the correct shape, and it's sort of locked in position. Can't get it under here. It goes under, but you know, at some point it stops. It goes under just a little bit here. Not everywhere. That's just inconsistency in the board. Ooh, the other side went up a tad. Hello!
I'm not an expert, but those welds won't hold. That's not.
No, they won't. Now, even from tack welding, now it has a little bit of movement in it. The other side is good, so I'm gonna just try to whack it with a hammer and see if that affects these. I'm gonna cut those. You know, the amount that it was off is almost nothing, but I'm just trying to get this so good, you know? Looks like that's where the problem was. One of the things I meant to do is add weight just to help it stay. So I'm gonna go do that. That's pretty well weighted now, I'd say. Now that I've cut that, check. It's a little bit off now this way. And I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, if I tack it again on the inside, because it's only this side now, and I re-tack it, it should bring that in, I think. So I'm going to tack it again. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, doesn't look like anything's moving. So I'm going to do this whole side. Yeah, I really can't win with this. Did it again. But that's one of the things where having something like a fixture table helps so much. But I don't have access to that right now. Should really get one, because then you can clamp it down to the table that you know is flat, and you clamp it down and nothing can move. So it's forced to cool in the correct shape. Now, how I'm handling this, I'm gonna do this side, and then I'm gonna grind it flat, and then do the other side. Let's see how that works out. Okay, so interestingly, from welding the other side, it looks like it came back together because I was consistent with what I did, so it undid itself. Wow. Oh. Just a little bit. Perfect over there. At this point, you know, it could go this way and that way now, but with those straight lines on the sides, it should hold it pretty good, and I'll be consistent with how I go about it. I'll do this side, then I'll do the other side again, and then I'll do this side on the other side, and whatever happens, it'll be the same on both sides. Now, in theory, should be done. Oh, please be flat, please be flat. That's all that really matters. Oh my God, it's flat. It's freaking flat. There's just maybe a thought of it right at that corner. But, you know, none of this matters at all because there's individual pieces that come out at these different spots that have their own flex. But I'm trying to bring it all back as close to good as I can, so the closer this is, the better. I have it laying on my template. It looks like it's freaking dead nuts on. Perfect. So now that I have the frame ready to go, I want to try and bend this back down. Now this gap is actually how much it's off. So I'm going to try using my shop press that I have here, and I don't have a firm plan yet, but I'm just going to start working with this and see what happens. I have no idea if this is going to work. Okay, so I've already ground this, but I'm at the point where I can weld stuff on, but there's a lot of pitting and stuff, so I want to get as much of that off as I can. Now, I could keep grinding it, but I've got this crappy spot blaster from Harbor Freight that I haven't used in years and used it for my car years ago for something. And I got a new air compressor that should be able to keep up with this thing. So I just want to test it out. Plus it'll save me grinding discs, and I have a feeling I have an infinite supply of free media, blasting media. But that'll be for a future experimentation. So I'm gonna go at it with this thing. Seems to work pretty good. So that's it. Hello. This is what it looks like after I'm done doing some grinding and some aftermath media blasting. You can see in the middle, that's still rust. The black stuff is actually rust, what it looks like when you hit it with the sandblaster. But in the middle it doesn't matter because I'm not welding there and it's just going to rust underneath there anyways. So I'm not worried about that. I just wanted nice clean edges for me to be welding into, and it cleaned out any of the rust that was in the pores that I wanted to get rid of. I could have went with the grinder and done more of that and just ground it all out, but then I'd lose a lot of material, and I'm trying to avoid making this any weaker than it needs to be. But this thing really goes through a lot of sand. The problem with this media blaster is down in the hole here, when it gets low, it doesn't circulate the media anymore because it creates a little dead spot. So you have to kind of jiggle this thing constantly, which is annoying. But it works. You know, it's meant to be a spot blaster. That's why they call it that, not really a sand blaster. But I think they're like 50 bucks, or at least that's how much it was when I bought it. Works well enough. Okay, so I'm ready to weld this all together. I just spent a bunch of time trying to compensate for that bend over here, and I have a lot of clamps very close together to get that flat on there, which then flexes the top. This was flat before, down, and basically everything else wants to be flat, and this one's bent just a little bit. It's up just a tad, that one's up a lot, but that's how I'm gonna do it. I don't know if this is the best thing to do or if I should just weld that, you know, off at an angle, but I'm hoping that by forcing that, over time it'll want to go back to the way it was, or maybe it won't. I'm not really sure. I might even be able to squeeze down on that a little bit and sort of get it back in when it has a more rigid support here. We'll find out here in a little bit, but for now I've got everything clamped and in place. I don't even know if I need to do any tacks. I'll do them to feel good about myself, but I don't think that's necessary with how it's all set up now. But we'll go ahead and start welding and see how it comes out. So with that pass, I was just trying to get deep in the pit to get a little bit back there to tack it in. Then the next run, I can do a slower and hotter, a little bit more swirling to get that to all melt together. Here you can see just getting in deep, and it's not a very good weld, but it's meant to just get that tiny edge in the back. And now I can hit that harder. Oh, it got heavier again. Oh. Now I can weld all that stuff. So, some of them are uglier than others. I'd say overall, my welding was a success here. I also need to cut the tabs off of these pieces that I cut off of the old frame of the disc, because I'm going to reuse these parts. And I got 4 of them that I need to get off of here. So with my makeshift work table for metal, I'm going to clamp it on here so I can get to everything. And don't mind the young lady taking a nap over there. That's a whole other project that I'll be getting to in a future video. What I find interesting here is as I cut into this, you can see the original line that it's intended to melt together when you're welding. So even this tab, which may have been original for this weld that I just cut through and took out, really didn't have good penetration. They just sort of attached this edge to that and didn't actually melt it together and fuse it. It was sort of tacked on this side and that side and didn't really get penetration between the two mating edges of the materials. Just kind of working my way around it this way. You can see they definitely had a newbie welding this thing together. It doesn't appear to be hardly touching the base materials at all. The weld is just sitting on the top and fused the materials indirectly through the filler material, not the base materials at all. They didn't fuse anything. Now that the frame is pretty much done, I'm slapping on a coating of totally unnecessary rust converter. I still need to weld the tabs back on, but that'll happen at the end of this rebuild process because it'll be easier to weld them to fit the new mounting arms rather than trying to make the mounting arms fit the tabs. In the next video, I'll actually design and make these new arms, which will conclude this project. But for now, I hope you enjoyed and have a good one.